Hi, welcome back to the Hatham Homestead. This is my old booster pump that I've just recently changed out on my pool. I had to change it out because the armature finally went bad, or the stator, somebody went bad in it, something. But I wanted to show you how to change the bearings internally to save you the 200 bucks for a new one. This one ran for about 15, 16 years. So if you listen to it, make sure you can hear the. So the bearings are bad, and when I went to turn it on, it just made a humming noise. I changed the capacitor, it didn't start back up. That's when I knew that the armature was no good. But I wanted to show you how to change the bearings to save you a little bit of money. So if you have one of these in the backyard and you've got to change your capacitor, because when you turn it on it just hums like so, really loud. Normally the capacitor is what fixes it. Your pool man will probably charge you 250 bucks to come out and change a $13 part. The capacitor is incredibly easy to change. We'll go through that first, and then we'll take the pump apart and show you the internals. So to change the capacitor, you only have two little bolts on it. It's going to be, depending on your machine, this one's a 1/4 inch. So granted, let's just pretend this is installed in the pool, and it's going to sit like so, where this is pretty much almost vertical. If it's not vertical, it should be. You have your 4 mounting flange bolts here that attach it to the pump adapter. There's an adapter right here, and then it goes into the shaft or the impeller to supply power. Now this is the same for your booster pump as it would be for your main pump. There's pretty much no difference if you have this type of pump. If you have a variable speed pump, this does not apply. With these, you only have to take one out because they are slotted. The case is slotted on top. So sometimes you can take one out and slide it out of the way. Right? So when you pick it up, you got 2 wires, in this case going to the capacitor, and you'll need a small pry stick to pop it out. Can you tell if these are bad? Sometimes. Normally not, but sometimes you can. It's just 2 wires, one on each side. They don't care which side they go on. Take your needle nose pliers. And if you're concerned about which side they go on, you can have the new capacitor sitting aside. This is actually a new capacitor that I changed out when this was making the funny noise, and it didn't fix it. So this is good. You want to make sure you got good bite when you put your wires back on, and make sure they don't slip off. And reverse the process. Shove that bad boy in there, and then put the 2 bolts on. Start the pump up. Hopefully your loud humming noise went away. It needs the extra juice to get the motor turning. So because we're going to take this apart and look at more stuff, we're going to leave this off. It's always good to have one of these guys laying around. So go out to your boost pump, turn power off, take the cover off, get your part number off of your capacitor, and order what you have in there. Make sure that your farads and hertz, let's see, yeah, make sure you're within that 124, 149 UF. Be close to that. Don't go too far outside of that. So we're going to set that aside. So to take this pump apart, to change the bearings out, there's 4 bolts that hold the case together. These bolts are as long as the case is. If yours has been sitting as long as mine was, you definitely want to get inside here somehow. From this end here, your bolts are going to go through here. And they're going to be in the same housing area. The same housing bolt goes into where the long bolt comes through. So you can take some Kroil, some WD-40 or something, and squirt it in there and let it sit for a little bit. Don't be scared to let it wait for it. Let it sit for a while. Make sure that penetrating oil can get down in there and break that rust free. especially if you've never taken it off before. If you have taken them off before, or you are getting ready to take it apart for the first time, and you do that little soaking job and they come out nice and easy, put some anti-seize on it. Don't put Loctite, because they won't ever come out. Anti-seize. Nickel seize, some type of anti-seize. That way, next time if you have to take it apart again and change the bearings out in 3 more years, because I think I did it probably every 3 to 4 years I'd change the bearings, which saved me a lot of money. Granted, there's time, but money. These bolts on this particular pump are 5/16. Like I said, sizes may vary. You want to take and break them free. If they twist really, really, really hard, so do like a quarter turn and soak them again for another 15 minutes or so. I'll show you how long these bolts are. See, they go all the way through the entire thing. They hold it together. And there's 4 of these. Mark on your housing somewhere before you pull it apart. I thought I might have had one on this already. I would recommend, like right on top where your capacitor is, just mark everything. Just put a scribe line on there. I don't think a marker is going to be good enough, because it'll probably wear off. Little scribe mark. That way I know kind of where everything's going to go together when I put it back. Notice I'm going real slow. If you try and go really fast or use an electric ratchet or impact, you'll break these. They're not very strong bolts. Before I take those last 2 apart, this one's broken. But right here, this bolt is what holds the bearing in on this shaft into this housing. Soak that bearing down, soak that bushing, or excuse me, that bolt down as well, because that one is exposed to the elements through the housing, and it's probably going to be rusted. And I'll show you internally. It's just a little clasp that goes over, the bearing sits in there, a little clasp that goes over like this when you tighten it up. So you loosen that thing up. You don't have to take it all the way out. Just break it free and loosen it up, and it'll pull that clasp apart. So when you take this housing off, or 4 bolts out, the housing will just slide right off. I say just slide off. Hopefully it will. Sometimes you got to beat on them. Pretty sure I had to beat on this one. I have some anti-seize on that. And this is, I'm just taking this apart to show you because this one's no good. Well, I assume it was no good. When I went to change it, the wiring back was actually, the insulation was burned off of it. So that could have been the problem, and I didn't notice that before I bought a new one. So as old as it was, I was like, ah, heck with it, I'm just gonna change it out. So we got our 4 bolts out. You'll have a cover plate on this, which you've probably already taken off. Those are 1/4 inch. So I haven't taken it apart since I changed it. So I'm probably gonna have to use a little hammer on it. My Harbor Freight hammer. This thing's awesome. See, it's starting to separate. And it pops right out. You'll be changing this bearing. And this didn't come out. And this is the other bearing. That's the clasp I'm talking about right there. So when you loosen that bolt up, what it does, it just twists that clasp that way. Takes this guy and moves it over. So it brings that thing all the way around. This is lead, so it's really soft. So be careful not to bend it. Because this one's garbage, I'm just going to pound this sucker out of the way, and I broke the bolt, so. Let me show you that clasp. That's all it is. It just rotates back and forth. So you loosen that up just a little bit, and you'll be able to slide that over out of the way. The bearing is not close tolerance fit in here. It could be tight because it's been so long since they've been taken apart. But when you tighten it up, you put that thing back in there, you slide that clasp back over. I think as I tighten, righty-tighty, right? So this thing will automatically go over and hit that, and then you can smoke it down a little bit. It does not have to be super tight. Then when you loosen it up, if it didn't break off, it would obviously just kind of hang on to that thing, pull it up out of the way so it slides right apart. Incredibly simple. And if we don't know about this, then obviously we break things. Hence how I broke that bolt. So the bearings are a different story to get off. That's how you get the motor apart. Hear that one? That's one that's making noise. Now it took me a while to find these on the internet to actually find the bearings for this, but I had to go to AO, whatever it is. I think the sticker came off, but I went on their website to find the actual buildup of this pump to get these bearings. I'll put those in the description down below. You're also going to want to get, if you have this Polaris booster pump, just get yourself a your basic Polaris booster pump O-ring kit. And I'll put that in the description below as well. You're taking it all apart in order to get the motor out and get the bearings out. You might as well change all the bushings and bearings and stuff, or excuse me, the seals. So they are press fit. They don't like to come off. Again, you don't want to pry too much on this because it will bend. And it's balanced, so let's have at it. All right, so I got this slide hammer kit from, I don't know, probably Harbor Freight. I don't even know where I got it. Got it years ago. Pick one up at Harbor Freight. So we're going to use it to take off this bearing. You want to put this in the vise. You want to make sure it's tight so it won't move, but you don't want to smoke it down too much. I'm sure there's a better way to do this. This is what I got. So grab hold of the bearing on 3 sides, like so, and just give it a whack. Starting to come off now. And it rolls underneath the car. Perfect. This one is going to be a lot harder because you can't get on the center of it like so. So you have to go off to the side. So I'm not sure how I did this one before. Let me do a little experimenting and I'll be back. And to put that other bearing back on, you'll just basically stick it on here and just hammer it down with something that goes around the bearing, push it in, and then everybody's happy. All right, this is from Shady Stuff here, but I've taken the end of my slide hammer claws and a portion of my grade 5 puller set here. And this is pretty tight on that bearing, so it's not going to go anywhere. And I'm going to use a punch and go this side and try and hammer this thing out. I had 2 of these. I could actually hook the other one onto here with the claws going out and probably slide hammer it right off. Which, I mean, now you're at that point to where you might as well just buy a new pump. So we're just going to take the hammer and hopefully it come off. Not like that. So when I did this last time, I actually heated the bearing up. I cut the bearing and then heated it and it just popped off. But a lot of people won't have that equipment to be able to heat stuff up here. It's pretty shady right here. If it works, then we don't care, right? So another thing you can do with those to hold them on, put a zip tie on it. I don't know if this will work. It'll probably slop right off. All right, so we're on the inside of the bearing there. Hopefully it'll stay on. The bearing has started to move. It's also flopping around in the vise here. So we're going to get it in there a little tighter. There we go. The tie wrap come off. So I'll just hold it. So I'm also pulling told you it's shady. It's working. Watch your fingers. It's not going to feel good if you hit them. All right, so redneck engineer in there to hold it so I can bang it the rest of the way off. A lot of beating there, but it came off. It's a bad bearing. We'll research what I bought for this. Take some Scotch-Brite, clean this up a little bit, and then, like I said, you put your new bearings on, you just take a socket and stick it over the top. That is about the same size, but it's got to go around that shaft. That's going to be the hard part to get under that shaft, so you probably can stick it on. Just going to put the same old bearing on because I don't need this pump. Don't smoke it down, leave it loose so it wobbles. This is probably not the right way to do it. Let's slowly work the bearing in. Get that tone change. That means the bearing is all the way on. And do the same with the other one. I would actually probably, I don't think I'd beat on this end. Mess it up pretty good. So, and that other bearing, I would take my socket over the top like so and put it on. It's going to sit right on here. It's not going to go very deep. So just make sure that your bearing race, whether it be the inside race or the outside where the ball bearings ride, is on this. You don't want to be too small. If you're too small, you could damage the bearing. If you look at this one, this is not the right bearing, but I'll give you an example here. See how it goes on the rubber there? That's not good for driving it in. You would want a socket that goes either on this end here or one that goes on the outside to drive it on, like so. So we're going to put the upper bearing back in, so I was talking about here. Make sure that your socket is around the race there. We're going to leave it loose. This is the old bearing because I'm going to throw this thing away, so I'll just tap it down. And you're listening for the tone change. It's going to happen real quick here. Hear that high-pitched tick tick. Bearing is all the way on. Now we go back over here. Let's see how quickly I can put it back together. So this guy drops inside here to go to the back. So we put the front on. So the back bearing just sits in there. There's a little spring inside the bottom down there. So if you tip this upside down, it'll fall out. So you just drop it down inside like so. We'll take this guy, flip it over. It does matter, remember where we made our marks, top up here. Before we stick that in there and tighten it up, we're going to, because this is broken, we're going to tap that little piece over. To hold the bearing in there. Again, this is shade tree stuff here. Making sure that that tab there is over the bearing. And we'll take this guy, drop it in here. Goes together nicely. This slips right together. So we have this back piece we never took off. Pop this back out. Let's find our index mark right here. About there. Take our bolts one at a time. So this is the hardest part because they'll flop around. There's channels I got to go in to get them straight. And then when you get them engaged, you'll notice. Don't forget your anti-seize. Now I'm going crooked. There we go. Remember, don't smoke these things down too much because you'll break them. And if you break them, I guess you probably buy a new one, but then you got to get the end out of the tip. So my recommendation is just kind of go around the whole thing here. Don't use electric ratchet. Do it all by hand. And no, using a slide hammer is not how I lost my thumb. Kind of star pattern them. Make sure your housing is pulled tight. I'll put about 30 inch-pounds on each one, and there you have it. New bearings, go put it back on. And that's how you change the bearings in a pump. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hey, comment if you know what tool it is I could use to pull out of the bearing off. That would be fantastic. I'm sure if I did some research I could find it. But I hope this saves you some money and some time. And don't cut your thumb off. Have fun out.